In this video, we're going to go over how to rewrite an equation in slope-intercept form. So as a review, slope-intercept form looks like this. Y is equal to mx plus b, where m is the slope, and b is the y-intercept. So if I'm given this equation, y minus 1 equals 2/3 x, I need to transform this equation to look like that. So if I break it up into the pieces, let's start with y. Do I have y on one side of the equation? Yes, I do. And the next thing would be slope. Do I have a number multiplied by x, and the number would represent slope? Well, in this case I do. I have 2/3. 2/3 is my slope, and it's multiplied by the letter x, or the variable x. Now, the y-intercept would be a constant. The constant that I have is, if I do change, the constant I have is a -1. So that -1 is on the wrong side of the equation. Y needs to be by itself. So we're going to use some algebra. How do I move this -1 from this side of the equation to that side? Well, in algebra, we add the opposite. So if it's a -1, the opposite of -1 is going to be +1. So if I add a 1 to both sides, then on this side of the equation, -1 plus +1 will cancel out and leave me with y, equal, we didn't do anything to the term 2/3 x, but then we did add 1. Now, does this equation look like slope-intercept form? It sure does. 2/3 is my slope, my y-intercept is 1, and now you're good to graph this equation on a graph in slope-intercept form. In this example, we have the equation 2x plus y equal -15. It is not in slope-intercept form yet, but that's our goal. We're going to make it look like that. I notice that y is on one side of the equation, but I also have this variable term 2x on this side. And I have a constant on the other side. Well, that -15, we can identify that as my y-intercept. And that's good where it is right now. It's on the opposite side of the equation from the y. What I need to do is move this 2x to the other side of the equation, and I'm going to use algebra to do it. So the opposite of positive 2x is -2x. So we're going to add a -2x to this side. And whatever I do to one side of the equation, I have to do to the other. So we're going to add a -2x. On the left side of the equation, 2x minus 2x, or 2x plus -2x, will cancel, and I'm left with y. And now if I put it in the right form, my term with slope and my variable x should come next, which would be this -2x. So we'll put -2x, and then -15 or plus -15 would be my y-intercept. So let's change that to plus a -15. And now it is in slope-intercept form, and it is ready to be graphed. All right, next equation. At first glance you might say, oh, it's already in slope-intercept form, but it is not. We have -y is equal to 2/3 x plus 10. So the 10 would be my y-intercept, and the 2/3 is my slope. But it's not ready yet. That negative needs to come out of there, because if you notice, in slope-intercept form, I need to have a positive y. So how do we get rid of that? Well, let's first put in a coefficient of 1 here. So now I have a -1. And if I think about algebra, when I have multiplication, I undo multiplication with division. So I'm going to divide this side of the equation by -1, but I also have to divide each of the other terms on the other side of the equation by -1. So this is what's going to happen. I divide this side of the equation by -1, and then each of these others has to be divided by a -1. So now if I go through and simplify, -1 divided by -1, negative divided by negative leaves me with a positive y. A positive 2/3 divided by a -1, positive divided by negative is going to make this a negative 2/3 x. And then positive 10 divided by -1, positive divided by negative is going to be a negative, so plus a -10. And now, if you look at it, we've got it in slope-intercept form. My slope now is -2/3, and my y-intercept is -10. All right, these are a little challenging. All right, I've got 2x plus 3y equal to 6. Well, the first thing to do would be to bring the term with the x in it from the left side to the right. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides, and that's going to move the entire term onto the other side. On the left side, the 2x's cancel, and I'm left with 3y. And on the right side, I have 2x, -2x, plus 6. Now, I have multiplication here on the side of the equation with the variable y. We undo multiplication with division. So I'm going to divide this side by 3, but I also have to divide each of the other terms on the other side by 3. So the 3's on the left side of the equation are going to cancel and leave you with just y. And -2 divided by 3, that's in perfect form for a slope. We're actually going to just leave this as it is. So my slope is -2/3 x. And lastly, 6 divided by 3 is just 2. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So I've simplified my equation down to its simplest form, and I'm left with the equation y is equal to -2/3 x plus 2, and I'm ready to graph.